The Bookshelf with me, Ryan Tubridy, is brought to you by Eason, Ireland's favourite bookseller. And Eason have a rich heritage of book selling since 1886. It's probably where you got your first ever book, or maybe your last one, and hopefully your next one after you listen to this episode of our podcast. So stay listening for Ryan Recommends, of course, my weekly recommendation, where I'll discuss a book I've read recently that I think you'll really enjoy too. And make sure to browse your local Eason store for your next book, or explore hundreds of thousands of titles online at easons.com. Order before 6 p.m. for same-day dispatch and enjoy free delivery when you spend over a tenner. Whether you're after the latest bestseller, a hidden gem, or a classic read, Eason has you covered. Eason, be inspired. Well, you're so welcome to The Bookshelf with me, Ryan Tubridy, and we're doing an episode today that is unlike any episode we've done before, because I've decided that we're going to invite an old friend of mine to the studio to see how she's doing, what book she used to read when she was younger. I'm talking about the book from her childhood, the book that changed her life, and the book that brought her joy. Her name is Roseanna Ruane, and we have some history that we'll share with you and explain everything in a context, if you will, over the course of the next 40 minutes. Roseanna, it's so good to see you.
You too. We've
been shooting the breeze before we came on air, and you seem in good form.
Yeah.
You feel good as much as you can.
Yeah.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the beginning of our friendship and our, I suppose, getting to know each other and how we ended up here today.
Yeah.
Will you tell everyone when we first met and the circumstances of that beautiful occasion?
We first met on the set of the toy show in November of 2020.
What was that like backstage before we met, and the vibe of that, the toy show being such a special occasion?
It was very unusual for a few different reasons. I suppose, first of all, you have to think this is every child's dream. So I was living this dream through my child,
okay,
who is Saoirse.
Yeah.
So there was that feeling of, oh my God, I'm here, through her, and it was amazing. But it was also COVID, so things were a little bit different.
Yeah.
We weren't allowed to mix backstage.
Couldn't hug.
No. And there was no live audience.
Yeah.
But it was what it was. And I think everyone was wondering, what will they do this year with the toy show? And I think, not being biased, it was the best one ever.
It was a very beautiful show because the world, the country needed that shot of colour and joy because they were dark times.
Yeah.
And you both came up and you sat together on the show that night. There was a lovely set that had a tree.
That's right.
And there was 2 park benches, so that gave us our social distance. And do you remember how Saoirse managed to get on the show? Did she audition, or how was she picked? Or
yeah, Saoirse had recorded a piece for Irish Women in Harmony. So she was part of one of their singles.
Yeah.
And she sent in that audition piece, and we got the phone call to come up and do an audition. But we were reminded that that did not mean that she was in, So we kind of just went up thinking, okay, we'll give it a shot. So it was very exciting, and getting that phone call afterwards to say that she'd made it through was amazing.
Was it really?
Yeah, great excitement.
So then we sat and we looked at each other on the show. We were live on TV then, and we were chatting away. And Saoirse was introduced to Ireland in many respects. And tell us about Saoirse at that point. Where was she medically and physically and physiologically?
Yeah, God, I feel like there's been so many different Saoirses on the journey. And when I picture her back then, God, she was so innocent. She was 8. Her hair was starting to grow back after her chemo. She had her amputation. So she was there sitting on the bench with her new prosthetic that nobody had actually seen and her 2 little crutches. And she sat there so innocent, probably a little bit oblivious to what was really, really happening. She was just so... she took everything in her stride, and she was always so grounded. She never let anything, she never got big in her head about anything, which I loved. She was just Saoirse. She smiled. She was so sweet. And in her speaking to you, it actually made me realise, how special she was. I remember when it came to gifting her the trip to Orlando, I remember you joking with her saying, maybe you could be going to Clifton. And she just went, yeah. I remember her shaking the head going, yeah. So innocent, and that would do her.
Yeah, the goodness of that.
Yeah,
the goodness of
there's so much goodness.
We were laughing before we came on the air about your two beautiful daughters, obviously Saoirse and Farrah Rose. And I was saying Farrah Rose, when I met her, was a firecracker, and Saoirse was like a little Buddha. I mean, she had, do you know what I mean by that? She had that lovely wisdom.
Yeah.
You can spot it from the get-go. So you got two very different numbers from the lottery draw there, didn't you?
I definitely did, yeah.
And what I'll do is, let me ask you a bit about the impact of Saoirse's appearance on the toy show, because it does tend to make stars out of the children. And how did it go after that? And I mean, I know COVID was there, but in terms of school and the neighbourhood and so on.
Yeah, I don't think we were expecting it to go the way it went. On the way home the next day, we pulled into the plaza in Kinnegad, and before we ever got into the shop, there was people in the courtyard saying, "Oh, that's the girl from the toy show last night."
Wow.
You know, and we were kind of going, "Oh God!" And then you had RTE on the phone saying, "What time will you be home? Would it be possible to meet up and get a quick little piece for the news?" And it was like, "What?" You know.
Showbiz landed on your doorstep, didn't it?
Yeah. So of course it was like, God, we need to get home, and what state is the house in? And it was still COVID, but to Saoirse, it all just went over her head.
Yeah.
It was lovely, and you know, she enjoyed the fun and the buzz, and I suppose it was a distraction through what she was going through.
Which was what?
The treatment, the recovering from the amputation. So she would have had her chemo, and then she would have had to take a break to have the amputation. And they would have given her some time to recover from the amputation before she had to resume chemo, which meant when you're on chemo then the leg was a bit slow to heal. So it took a little bit longer than it should have. And then it was the rehabilitation that she had to do to build the strength back up in her leg, physio, returning back to school and all of that. So, you know, she was living a little bit of a different life to her other comrades.
Yeah.
But as you know, she went back and she did it all.
Yeah, that was the mark of the girl.
Yes.
You're our guest today. And with that in mind, I want to ask you about your first book today, which is the book from your childhood.
Yeah.
And I'd love to know a bit about yourself. Where did you grow up, and what was the sisters, brothers ratio, and how was life as a little girl for you?
Well, I was coming up the road thinking about this, you know, and I was thinking about that word nostalgia.
Oh, yeah.
I love that word because I think I'm a dreamer. And it's not just for the future. I just love thinking back on the past, and my childhood was a very happy childhood. And I think of things like, you know, there was my mom, my dad, and then my mom was a nurse, and my dad was a kind of an engineer. He was working back in Gort, and then he gave that up to be at home with us while mom was working, so that he could bring us to school and that while he was full-time farming. So we had a lovely rearing that way. I had 4 sisters, no brothers. Would have loved a brother in there for the mix, but didn't get one. And yeah, we had a great childhood. I still remember things like, you know, it would get to August and the same conversation every year. Now we're going to go away for a few days, and your father said not to pack too much. We don't have room in the car. And we go to the same place every year, the Ryan Hotel in Killarney.
Yeah.
And we'd pull up and he'd say, "Oh, I think it's full."
Okay, the same joke every year. Dad
every
joke.
Year.
Yeah.
And we'd be looking at the sign going, "What does vacancies mean?"
And why are there so many of them?
And we'd do maybe 3 nights there, and that was a lot back in those times. And then we'd think we're going home, and he'd say, "Now we're going to stay somewhere else for 2 nights." And it was lovely.
Yeah.
They gave us what they could, and you know, looked after us very well.
Were there books about the place, or was it a bookish?
Encyclopedias.
Oh, well, they're important.
Yeah, that was to help with the homework.
All the homework, yeah. Get the encyclopedia out. Yeah. Where's Ghana?
Yeah. You know, the people that came, like there was a salesperson that came around knocking on the doors at the time. So my dad invested in that, which he actually gave to Saoirse then.
Did he?
So that's in our house, that collection of books. There was books, but nothing that stands out. This book for me, which my first book that I have here today, I don't know what it is. It just always brought me comfort and always brought me back to my bedroom in our house. And that's the one book that stands out for me. I can't think of any other.
You brought it in. It's called A Little Princess. It's a Ladybird book, which is just, they are such a beautiful series. Yeah. This is a slightly more modern Ladybird to the ones I had back in the late 19th century. And it is, do you want to tell us a little bit about this book? Or?
Well, it's about Sarah, whose dad was very wealthy and he had to go back to India. And she started off being a child who had everything that she could possibly want. Very, very wealthy life. And then it all went wrong and she had to kind of live this life of poverty. She was quite poor. Things started to go against her. And the only way she could see herself coming out of it was to try and dream about getting back to that place, or, she was very imaginative. And yeah, that's kind of what I remember most about it, really.
It's kind of, as you said, you describe yourself as a dreamer, and here's this little girl.
Yeah.
I have one observation to make, which is as I look over the cover, in the inside page, says Caroline.
Oh, I don't know who she is.
So, who owns this book?
I do. But
Now,
you know when you have a little sister that comes along and just writes their name on it, and you're like, sorry, that's not yours.
So is that, I don't know who to believe now, you or Caroline.
But
I don't want to
I have
miscarriage.
to question myself, because I'm like, is that the original, or was there another book?
Yeah.
But that's the one I have in my possession.
Well, you still have it then.
Yeah.
Okay, so Caroline was muscling in on your book collection at that stage.
Yeah.
So let's go back to bounce back to Saoirse for a moment, because after the toy show extravaganza, we became kind of friendly, didn't we? I mean, there was a friendship of sorts where, we connected and there would be notes exchanged, or I remember coming down to the school.
Yeah. It started with the promise of a hug.
It did.
Yeah.
Tell everyone about that.
We couldn't hug each other. And as we left the set of the toy show that night, we said we'd meet again, and I said we might have that hug.
Mm-hmm.
And we were back again to talk about the fundraising that was done from the Amazing Toy Show appeal. And you were great. You always kept checking in on us and checking in on Saoirse. When she was having her radiation in St. Luke's, we met you for coffee one day.
We did.
Just like very natural and very lovely. And that was kind of it.
Do you remember when she ran at me in the studio for the hug?
Oh yeah.
And it was like a bullet from a gun.
Oh my God, that was like a whole other. That's right. Yeah, she spent a lot of time with you that night before the show, and we were in the waiting room, and you had the guitar and you played around, and she was. And I don't say this because you're sitting across from me. It's we know it very well. She was very fond of you.
Yeah, and that was mutual.
Yeah.
And I still have little gifts that she gave me at home, and I keep them. There's the one particular thing about, the joy of life. It was a little sign that she bought somewhere, and it's on one of my bookshelves at home, which I love. And I got, there were notes and cards, and so it was she was a very thoughtful, I think. I mean, I don't want to belittle the magnitude, if you like, of how extraordinary she was, but just a very, very thoughtful, kind person.
Very
I think.
very kind and affectionate.
Yeah,
she was always affectionate. She was always looking for hugs and kisses, which was lovely, because not everyone gets that from their childhood, and it was something we instilled. And Pharaoh's is exactly the same.
Yeah,
it's kisses and hugs. And like if Ollie goes to give me a hug, and it's very hard, you get your own quiet time in a house, you know what I mean? But if he goes to give me a hug, the girls were always the same. Hold on, wait for us. They'd make a run for you, and it was a group hug.
Yeah, it's a nice thing to do.
And it's a lovely thing. And even the dog Willow now
is getting involved. Yeah, I saw some footage of Willow on your Instagram there. All right, and I love that. We did have the trampoline moment in your back garden, which was great fun with the girls. We had cake, and it was just a lovely memory, I must say, sitting around, and it stayed in my mind.
Yeah, you going to the school was so important. You made her a promise and you kept it.
Yeah.
And you got to meet all her friends, and she just loved the giggle and the laugh.
What was the name of the princess? She had a great name.
Mrs. Hansbury.
Mrs. Hansbury. Straight out of Downton Abbey. I loved her name, Mrs. Hansbury. And she was a delightful human being. She was a really good person. You could see that too. Mrs.
Retired after
and she'd gone, gosh, you lost a good one there, for sure. Let's talk a bit about getting towards the end of Saoirse's life. And that is a horrible thing to even say as a sentence, but did you know when she was slipping away that this was it, or did you always cling on to some sort of hope to say maybe, because you had a lot of faith, you were very strong?
Yeah, I had. Yeah, we did. We wouldn't have been people that would have been in the front row at Mass every Sunday. I don't believe you need to be to have your religion. You do it your own way, and I've always been like that. We actually had such a fondness for Clonfert Church and Our Lady of Clonfert, and we'd go down there in our own time when it suited us, and we'd spend some time there, and Saoirse had a great fondness for it, and we prayed to her a lot, and a lot of special things happened when we were down there, conversations that were had. I still have my faith, but at the moment, as I was saying to you earlier, I've just pressed pause on it for a moment. I find the church a very triggering place to go. I find I get very emotional, and I find it very hard to contain my emotions when I walk into that environment. So for me, I just go to the masses that I have to go to. I don't go to any other masses or funerals or anything like that.
No.
That time will come again.
People will understand that completely.
Yeah.
But I suppose it was the I'm trying to find the right language, because I'm dancing around you now, and I shouldn't really, but I also don't want to be brutal. And I think that's another thing that people probably have trouble with when they meet you now, is what to say, how to act. We'll get there in a sec. We'll talk about that in a moment. But tell me about Saoirse's final days and weeks, and
well,
how
I'll
was
talk
she?
to you about so much of it. We're still not ready to
Talk to me about it as much as you can or want to, and then we'll keep going.
Yeah, the end is just too hard still,
Yeah.
I suppose I'll go back to April 23 when we would have had a CT scan, and she was examined by her oncologist. It was just one of her usual reviews. And on physical examination, he said she was brilliant. She was in great form. He was always joking and messing with her. And she was in great form, and physically examining her, she presented very well. And the CT scan was done, and it was, sure, look, we'll give you a ring later. This is the norm. Off you go down the road to Galway. So we thought no more of it. We thought, this is going to be another good review. But it wasn't. We got the CT scans before we ever left Dublin. And we were just called into a room, and it's that look between the doctor and you on the corridor, and that little beckoning, I need to speak to you. I just knew there and then there's something wrong. They've found something, or there's something wrong.
Were you with Ollie?
We were there together, the three of us, and the doctor spotted me through the waiting room glass and beckoned me. And with that, I don't tolerate lies. I hate lies, and I would always encourage the girls never to tell lies. But you started to learn how to lie to Saoirse, if you can use that word, make up excuses when you were trying to protect her. I knew I was needed in his office, but Saoirse was very aware of what was going on. So you'd get very good at saying, oh, I'll be back in a moment, or, oh, he just wants to talk to me there about your file. But you knew, and Ollie knew, by the look you gave each other, that there was something more. There
was a language, and she spoke fluent.
Yeah.
And there were signs, and there were probably vibes, and she was so smart that she...
So smart, and she always needed reassurance. And he advised us at the very beginning, our consultant, Michael Capra, to always tell the truth and keep that good relationship and keep that honesty. So that's what I'm saying by, when I'm trying to define that you're telling her the truth, but there's things that you were trying to not tell her yet, or, you to get around bends.
Limited truth.
Limited truth.
Maybe that could be because of out of a sense of protection. And that's what that was.
Yeah.
And he took you aside and said...
Brought me into his office.
And you knew straight away, this is bad.
Yeah.
And he gave you this horrible news.
Yeah. And then we brought Ollie in, and I remember at the time Saoirse had her little iPad with her, so she'd go on that for a while. She wouldn't be there for those conversations. And we were told that day that there was no more they could do. They could keep throwing chemo at her, and they could keep having surgeries to remove. But she had started initially with the cancer in her tibia in her leg, and then she got cancer in her lung. And this was a relapse.
Okay.
And we don't need to go on to talk about where else it came. I mean, it just kept coming. But at this stage, we were being told our time is limited now. And this was April 23. And I asked the question, would we have her for Christmas? And I was told possibly not. And that's the day we started grieving the life that we knew what was ahead.
Yeah. And it is sort of grieving in advance, nearly.
Anticipatory grief.
Anticipatory grief. You go home that evening then, and everything has changed, because you'd had this hope for so long, and now there was a sort of horrible brass tacks to it.
You were always dealing with statistics.
Right.
And you always knew that if she got a secondary, it was never going to be good.
Yeah.
But the longer we had Saoirse and the longer we were looking at her and the longer she looked great, but this cancer was inside her, you can't help but saying, you know, I don't know, maybe she's going to be different. Maybe she's going to prove everyone wrong. Maybe she's going to defy all these odds. And even though you know time is, you know, slipping away, you still have these days where you're going, geez, I don't know, she's too good. Like, she's great. What's
you have to
going on
have
here?
that. You have to have that hope.
Yeah.
You have to have that. And it might be diluted, but it's going to keep you going.
Yeah.
Did time go fast or slowly?
I don't think it went fast. You're talking about a 4.5 year journey here, and a lot went on in that time. I never knew when she'd be requested to go back up for chemo, or, you know, in the end, she had radiation in St. Luke's for a while, and then she was on an oral chemo every day. And she was back at school as long as she was able to go to school. But then I suppose when it came to November 23, and we knew we weren't allowed to leave the country because I'd had that conversation with my consultant. We wanted to go away to the sun for a week. He said I wouldn't advise it. We thought she was so good that we just said, you know, we might just fit in a little trip to London. And we went to the West End to see Frozen.
How was that?
It was amazing.
Yeah.
And a memory that we will always have. And it was all about being the memory makers and creating memories.
Right. Yeah.
And I remember being in the beautiful hotel, like Ollie booked it. He went all out. He was always so good that way. He always just, you know, spoiled the girls. Yeah. And we're sitting in our hotel, and I do remember looking at her going, gosh, she's so good. But there was something telling me, this is it. This is our last trip.
Yeah, you knew. You know when you say sorry because you're getting emotional?
Yeah.
Don't say sorry to me. Please, just be yourself.
Yeah.
And there's nothing to apologise for. I really mean that. And I don't mean that in to admonish. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
It's like Irish people who say sorry on the bus even though they were bumped in too.
Yeah.
So don't be saying sorry.
Yeah.
Just keep going, and don't keep going, depending on where you are. I love the idea that you enjoyed Frozen. I love that the four of you.
Amazing.
Can you listen to Frozen now or watch it? Yes.
Yeah. We've no choice.
Farrah Rose,
yes.
the firecracker.
Every Disney movie that there ever was, she nearly knows all the songs off by heart.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's still in there.
It lives on, yeah.
Okay. Saoirse, you say passed is the word you use for her. She passed.
She passed, yeah.
Is that the language that
I
works for
don't
you?
like that whole D word, death. I even her garden. It's a garden. It's not a grave. It just takes the coldness away for a child. It was the night that we had left her at her resting place. A neighbour of mine said to me, oh, I love her garden. And I said, what? And she said, I love her garden, all the flowers. And I said, wow, that's such a beautiful thing to say. And from that moment on, I said, that's what we'll call it. And it is a garden, and that's what everyone refers to it now. And now it's even known by our followers as Saoirse's Garden.
Where is it?
It's in Bullan. It's closer than our village, Kiltulla, would be. It's 3 minutes away, and it's right beside the new school that went up last year, and the same school that we happened to send Farrah Rose to.
When we met on the toy show, we were in a sort of garden setup with the benches with the tree. And then I came to see you in the house, and we hung out in the garden on the trampoline. Yeah. And then we did a beautiful photo on that lovely. Yeah. Do you remember that door? Is that to the field? The
yellow gate.
The yellow gate.
I'm getting another one, Ryan.
I bet you are.
I am.
Okay, I'll cut the ribbon on the next and the new one.
But I know what you're saying about that whole thing.
There seems to be a theme there of.
Well, you know, sad and all as it is, I remember when we were trying to find the garden for her. And Ollie had gone up and done the initial talks and said to me, you know, you need to go up, Roseanna, and have a look and see what you think. And I found that very hard to do. It took me weeks and weeks. And one evening, randomly, I just went up, had a look. I had an idea where it was going to be. And I stood there and said, you know, it was a matter of next come, next serve. It's an awful way to say it, but you didn't just book your plot and that was it. It was as you need it. So we had an idea of the stretch along the road there, the pathway that it would be. And I remember standing there, and in my head I had planned to enroll Farrah Rose in the school behind the wall. just for a fresh start for her. And I stood there and all I could think of was when that school is open every day, all she'll hear is laughter and play and giggling. And across the road is a pitch and she'll hear the friends playing camogie and the hurling. And I thought, oh my God, this is it. This is perfect. And that's how we chose the garden.
Can I ask you about the tattoo on your arm?
That's, of course.
Because I just spotted it earlier on.
Because I've never spoken about it. So that's actually really nice.
I spotted it earlier when we were talking, and I was kind of, it's got a really nice script, and it's a quote, obviously. Why don't you read it out first?
I never had a tattoo.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm very new to all this.
They're all the rage
Doing
now.
everything in my 40s.
Yeah.
I never had a tattoo. I never had an interest in one. I thought, that's fine, that's your thing, it's lovely, but I never wanted one on me. And I don't know what it was when Saoirse passed. I thought, I'd like to get something, but I didn't want something too mad or, I just wanted it kind of in a discreet place where I could see it.
Inside arm, just below your wrist. It's very discreet.
Above my watch strap. And it's actually a note that Saoirse left me. It's her handwriting.
Actual handwriting.
Her actual handwriting.
Sophisticated handwriting for a young lady.
And it says, Mama, I love you very much. Love, Saoirse. And a little heart that she drew on just one of her many little notes that she'd leave on your bed or under your door. And I just felt that no matter where I go in life or what I do now, when I look at that, I can do anything.
Forever.
Yeah. And I'll never hear her tell me she loves me again. I'll hear Farah Rose, but I can read this and know that she loved me. Yeah.
Where did you get that done?
I looked around for a while because I wanted to get the right person, and I found a girl from South Africa.
Yeah.
And went to her, and she, and it's everything. They can enlarge a word, but they never touched her font. Like it's even her little father. It's so high above her name, it's nearly part of the Y, but that was the way she had it in the note.
No, it's very, very, very moving, and
and it's quite personal. Like I don't talk about it openly. It's lovely to talk about it today, but it's just, I'm kind of like, if someone sees it, it's a lovely conversation to have.
It is. It's really nice.
But it's my little thing.
So here's this week's Ryan Recommends, brought to you by Eason, Ireland's favourite bookseller. I'm going with The Sunshine Man by Emma Stonex. This is a story about a man who's released from prison. He committed a crime, or did he, some years before? There's somebody who's really angry with him about that crime, so they decide, I'm going to get him. What you have now is a classic, not only cat and mouse tale, but also who's telling the truth, whose memory is the most accurate. That is really the rub of this book. It's very, very interesting play on all of that. Won't take you forever to read. I'm recommending it. It's The Sunshine Man by Emma Stonex. Now back to the show. I'm going to go to our second book, because we are talking about books as well. Will we talk about the book that brings you joy?
Yeah.
And the book that makes you smile. You've got what looks like a very annotated book. Have you kind of been taking notes? Well, tell us about this.
It's a beautiful one. And I actually have little ones marked to do a few quotes.
With photographs. Here we go.
Little note cards that I got made up for myself.
I'm just, for people listening, they're gorgeous photographs of you with Saoirse. There's on the rocks. It looks like somewhere in Connemara. Beautiful. And the pair of you just looking at each other and hugging each other. And it was an extraordinary love between you all.
I just got them done for my own keynotes, for my own events, which we'll talk about in a while. But
please do.
This is Big Panda and Tiny Dragon by James Norbury. And this was a gift that was sent in anonymously to Saoirse when she was in ICU in Crumlin after having her lung resection and reconstruction. I thought it was the most beautiful thing a person could do. To send it anonymously was even more special. And I used to sit at the end of her bed for that week while she was hooked up to many monitors, wires, machines. It was quite daunting. And I'd open a page every now and again, such as this one, and I'd read a little quote, if I may.
Please do, yeah.
That tree has been through some rough times, said Tiny Dragon. Yes, said Big Panda, but it's still here and it has gained strength and beauty.
Nice.
And I just think about Saoirse and think, she's still here fighting. I always, like, whatever I read, I referenced it, to her or just thought about, you know, here's another one. The path ahead looks difficult, said Big Panda. No matter how hard it gets, said Tiny Dragon, we'll face it together.
Lovely, lovely messages.
Just so.
And kindness.
Yeah. And that person that sent that.
Yeah.
I don't know if they really knew us or it was just a.
They knew your story.
Yeah.
And they may have been through. I love the idea of the tree.
Yeah.
You know, it's been through tough times, but look at it there.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people will relate to that.
Yeah.
Which is really sweet. So that you still read that book, do you? Do you still
we have
look at
these
that?
all around the house. We have this, and I just pick it up every now and again and have a little read. And I'd often find Farah Rose looking through it, whether she's looking at the pictures because she's good at the reading, but she wouldn't be up to this standard yet.
Yeah.
So she might be just looking at the pictures, but it's just lovely to see her reading it
With a book in her hand.
with a book in her
It's
hand.
a beautiful. How is Farah Rose? How is she doing with everything?
I'm going to assume that she's dealing with this the same way any child would. She acknowledges it. You know, she'll turn around. She makes nothing of saying to you, I miss Saoirse.
Yeah.
Or she'll say, I wish Saoirse was here for me when I lost my first tooth.
Yeah.
She misses her being there for the milestones. She's actually just after getting the chicken pox. And she turned around to me yesterday and she said, I miss Saoirse being here for me getting the chicken pox. And you're like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
You know, but it's innocent.
How old
and
is she?
She's 6.
She's 6. Gosh, help her. Okay, so she's got that innocence, as you say.
Yeah, an innocence. But as you know, she's a proper diva.
She is a proper. You said to me before, she's destined for the stage.
Yeah,
you know,
she is.
You used to do some lovely singing with Saoirse on the guitar. And have you touched the guitar since? No,
I haven't been able.
Do you find some things are just impossible to do?
I find I can listen to music. And I love music, and people would even ask me on our social media to put a playlist of, you know, what I like and the music I put to our stories together. And I have something I haven't gotten around to yet, but I love my music. I was a wedding singer before Saoirse got sick. It was just part of who I was, and I loved that whole buzz of turning up at a wedding and sing, you know, the happy ending. But I did find it very emotional too. And the last time I sang with Saoirse was when we recorded a song, Sing for Saoirse, which was a charity fundraiser. And there was nearly 1,000 people in the room recording that song with us. And it was a very special day. And that's the last time I sang with her. And I just find it too hard to think about opening my mouth to sing again. For me, it's nearly like, you know, we had my mum and dad's 50th wedding anniversary there a few weeks ago, which was great to get to, and I hope we all get there.
Congratulations to them.
Yeah, things like that. My sister's 40th was in November. I find those hard. I find to open my mouth to sing happy birthday or to raise a glass to someone, I find that really hard. That's one of the things I struggle with on this journey, is to be that happy. I can't do that yet. I suppose I just think we'll never have another happy birthday song for her. And I'm quite, you know, I'm obviously very sad about that.
In terms of Saoirse's passing, it was only, you know, in many respects yesterday. It's so recent. How is it? What is it?
13 months now.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's only yesterday.
Some days I'll even ask myself, you know, like I show up every day and I do what I need to do. And for me, I know I have to keep busy. I can't dwell. But I even said to Ollie recently, like, have I grieved? Like, has it really hit me, those times when I've cried into his arms or been hit out of the blue with grief? Was that my grief? Yeah. Or have I yet to experience it?
Wow, that's a very daunting thing to say.
I don't know.
I feel that. I've just felt that because you wonder, that's a really interesting thing. Am I done on that?
Yeah.
Or is there a bigger thing coming down the road?
Yeah. I mean, I'm grieving.
Yeah.
And that'll never leave me.
Yeah.
You walk with it now. But has it hit me?
I walked down the pier shortly after my father died, and I felt great. And because, you know, that was the end, and he was a good man, and I felt, you know, he was well mourned and so on. And I met a woman who I didn't know. She was a listener to the radio show, and she said, "How are you?" And I said, "You know, I'm actually quite good. You know, She said, I'm sorry to hear about your father. Yeah, well, it's the Lion King, circle of life. And, I was being a bit whimsical about it and a bit glib, actually. And she said, give it 3 months.
Okay.
I said, Jesus, what is she talking about? Now, I'm not trying to take from your story in any way. I'm just trying to, I suppose, chime with what you're saying. 3 months later, she was right. Then I felt the chasm of the finality. And that's it. Like, it's a full stop. This isn't a comma or a semicolon. Like, this is it. And then then came the grief. So, but that was 3 months, and that cloud burst that you're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that you can't say the worst is over. I'm hoping that you don't have more pain coming at you.
You see, I wonder, because people would comment to me, you're so strong and you're great to show up every day, and you're on social media and you're inspiring and you're helping others, and I don't know any other way to be. I have to be busy and I have to be doing something that I feel is helping someone else. But if you told me, Roseanna, in 6 months' time, this is going to hit you like a ton of bricks, I'd probably say, oh, well, fair enough, because I've nothing to compare it to. I'm not, obviously not, you don't get over it. I'm just living with it as best I can. There's certain times it will hit me. I suppose there's things I know that trigger me. Like the school mass was beautiful, her graduation mass. It was so beautiful and it was so lovely to be invited. But my God, did it knock me for six. And I suppose when I say let myself down, I didn't let myself down, but I found it very hard to contain myself that day because it was her graduation mass from 6th class and it was done so beautifully well. But when it came to the end of mass after communion, 7 of the children stood up and the first child held up the letter S. The next child held up the letter A. And I said, I could see where this was going and I wasn't able for it.
It's too much.
And I was the mom wailing in the church and I was so composed at the funeral and the month's mind. Yeah. But that's why I'm like, I can't do that. That's too much. I know my boundaries. Yeah. I found that hard.
I'm struck by the fact that your self-awareness is kind of remarkable, that you said you were the mother wailing in the back of the church. You let yourself down. You're using the language of sort of, you were a little bit embarrassed almost talking about it, looking back at it, or no, that's probably the wrong word, but you were just conscious that maybe you made other people feel, that rather than...
Yes.
I think anyone listening or watching this will go, you just let out that roar or that anyone, if they thought about it, would have in them. Yeah. There's no one is going to judge that. And
I hadn't done that, Ryan, since the day we stood in Crumlin that they told us that she had a tumour. Yeah. I let out my screams that day in Dublin. Yeah. And I hadn't done it I was probably quite composed about the whole journey and even her passing. But that day, for some reason, and I suppose it sits with me a lot because I remember at the end of Mass, this little boy from maybe 4th class at the time, he was looking at me with such sorrow and he looked into the pew and he said, "Are you okay?" Oh, and I said, "Yeah, I'm okay, thanks."
Poor lad.
And I thought, oh God. And I just thought, what am I doing to him and all these other kids? But I couldn't help this emotion.
No, and no one would say a second word about that. You have a third book for us that I'm dying to hear about because I keep reading about it, but I haven't read it. This is the book that changed your life, Roseanna. And would you introduce it to us and tell us how has it changed your life?
Well,
who wrote it?
It's changing, maybe.
Oh, changing. Okay.
I'm not finished. I'm over halfway through.
That's okay. This isn't school. You don't have to have your homework done.
But I am loving it, and you'll hear it. It's probably a book that's trending really at the moment.
Yes, I've heard a lot about it.
The Let Them theory, Mel Robbins. But really, it's not until you start reading the book that it's actually let them, let me. That's the whole ethos. So I could try and give you an example.
Give us a rough idea of what it's about anyway. Yeah,
so basically Mel Robbins, I don't know, she's just amazing. I listen to her podcasts. I listen to her when I'm in the gym. It's the type of book that you just read and you're shouting back at it going, yes, I get that. I totally get that. God, you make so much sense. I I suppose we all get bogged down about different things. I'm trying to think if I could give you an example, but not a personal example.
Yes.
Like people's opinions, I think that's something we all worry about. What will other people think?
We worry about that too much.
And from reading this book, I've kind of started to just get stronger in my belief that I have to live life the way I choose to live it, and not the way someone else expects me to live it.
Nice.
Let's go away to America. Oh God, what will people think? But sure, are we going to stay at home because they might think it's the wrong thing to do? Sure, we'll just stay at home
Yeah.
You can't live your life like that.
So you're being dictated by other people's opinions.
It's just something I would have always struggled with. I think it's a country thing. It's an Irish thing. It's
notions.
What will they say?
Notions.
But we don't. And that leads me on to, I think we all have notions, Ryan, and I think it's great.
Well, you see, that's called, in America, it's called ambition.
Oh, well, there you go.
And they encourage it. Whereas in Ireland, if you're ambitious, you can be seen as somebody with notions, and therefore you need to be cut down.
And yes, and you see, if I can say this without being offensive to anyone, the people that are going to accuse you of having notions are the people that are just jealous because they can't make that move or don't want to make that move. But by being bold enough to have the notions or being ambitious, you're living life on your terms. And you have only one life, as we now know with Saoirse. It's so precious. So
precious and fragile.
You only get one go.
Yeah.
If tomorrow's your day for it to be all up, don't have any regrets.
Yeah. So and also don't be beholden to other people's thoughts.
No.
And that's what this theory is. Let them think that, or let them feel that way. In other words, there's another word you could use for something then. And you say about the begrudgers as well. But you're too polite. I wouldn't bring it up here.
Let them think that we have a great time. Let me do this for me and my family.
Yeah.
Let me take my family away because we can't do Christmas this year.
Yeah.
So let's run away from it.
Yeah.
And let's have the break that we didn't have after a really tough year. Let's have that break that we well deserve.
But what will the neighbours say? Let them.
Let them.
What will the neighbours? I'm sure the neighbours are lovely. But what do people say online?
But we say neighbours, but you're talking about in general.
That's great. That's quite a liberating book that must be for you.
Yeah. And in the book, they talk about work scenarios and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And if you're not happy in your job, and is it your line manager that's to blame? If you're not happy, it's you that needs to make the shift. So it just brings it back to being in your control and what can you do about it.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. Taking back ownership of your life. That's really good. Yeah. That's a great book for you. That's not a book. That's a manual for your life.
Yeah.
I love that.
And your energy, conserving your energy and not giving up your energy.
Yeah. Because there are energies, leeches.
What do they call them? Drainers and radiators. So.
Drainers and radiators. I like that. Are people funny around you?
Oh, it's funny. There's such a mix, Ryan.
Go on. What's happening?
From being in the public eye.
Yeah.
Actually, I think Ollie said to me when we went to America, he said it was so refreshing that nobody knew us. Yeah. You could get on a plane. Okay, you might have known one or two on the plane, or they might have known you, but in the whole time we were in America, only one person, because they were Irish and in America at the same time, and we happened to bump into them, came over and said, she was a lovely lady. She said, "Oh my God," she said, "I follow you. I'm from Louth. It's lovely to see you, and now I'm going to leave you be."
Well done. Classy handling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that brings me on to the different types. So, and everyone means so well, but see, you have the people that will come up to you and they'll be like, "Oh my God, hello, how are you? We follow you." And this is just so unusual. Like, it's kind of like we're just the Ruans that live down the road in Kiltulla. Do you know what I mean?
I know. Yeah.
So it's kind of like, "Oh, hello, how are you? Yeah, sure, look at the madness we'd be putting up on our stories, and we're just normal like everyone else." So you have that layer. Then you might have someone that comes over and God love them, they can't help themselves. Their emotions take over and they start crying because they're so sad for what you've gone through. And my heart breaks for them. And they try to come over and have a few words and they're not able to get the words out. And then you think, is that helping you? Helping me?
Yeah.
But you just take that on board. You'll have someone then that'll message you the following night. "Oh, I saw you yesterday in Blanchardstown, and you were outside having a coffee," and you're just laughing, going, "Why do you need to tell me what I was doing? Like I know this."
I was there. I was there.
But it's funny. It's just people maybe it's just a bit of excitement. And then you have, of course, the silent.
What's that?
They never contact you. They're watching, but they don't comment. They don't like. They don't heart. They don't message. They don't interact.
I think they're called lurkers.
Is that what they are? Yeah, I just call them silent followers.
The silent. Much more polite than the lurkers.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Sorry about it. Yeah, sorry. Okay, suitably admonished.
Yeah.
Do people? Do you also get people who kind of oversympathize, or are people generally very nice?
No, I think people are generally very nice, but I suppose because we have a platform, and I suppose we are, as I say, in the public eye, you're more wary, and you're more aware, especially I would be with Farrow's, of who's approaching her. Sometimes we could just walk into a coffee shop or somewhere and someone might say, "Hello, Farrow's," and she'll look at them as if to say, "How do they know me?" Yeah. I know it's because she's on Instagram. She knows she's on Instagram, but she hasn't made the connection that. So sometimes I wonder about that. I'm not too sure how I feel about that.
Yes.
When she's not on saying Happy Monday or Happy Tuesday, you'll have the followers that are like, "Oh God, Miss Farrow's."
Oh, yeah.
Or they'll say, "Oh, it's so great to see Farrow's back this morning. I really missed her." But then you have, should she be on there really? I don't know. It's a hard one. So we're just...
You're navigating it.
Yeah.
Okay. The right answer will come your way when you choose to.
Yeah.
One of the final questions I ask you is about the name of the autobiography you haven't written yet. I presume you've been approached, and it's a matter of time when the time is right, because you've got such an extraordinary story to tell that's ongoing.
Yeah. So my thing about this is autobiography versus biography. I always said that there was a book about Saoirse's story. Yeah. I always felt there was. And even more so then, when she passed, I just thought, I just don't want her to be forgotten about. And, pure mom head on me, they should even make a movie about her. She was just so fabulous, that kind of way. Yeah. But I always felt there's definitely a book about Saoirse. But then I thought, as a family, we've been through an awful lot. We've been through a lot of cancer and a lot of hardships. And I thought, maybe that's the book that will be written, and Saoirse will be a big part of that book. We spoke through voice message not too long ago, and you were telling me you're doing some great work. Oh, yeah. And I said, can I be of any use to you at all? And you said, well, I'm doing this thing. I'd love to get the word out there. Yeah. And I suppose in some ways, one of the nice things about this podcast is that I can invite you on and you can spread the good word of what you're doing, because you're doing something that's going to help a lot of people. You're doing something that's going to heal a lot of people. And I'd love you to tell us a little bit about it. Thank you. A couple of months after Saoirse passed, and I had been thinking about how I didn't know where to go in life and what to do, but I knew I wanted to do something different. There's a very fine line, I always say, between confident and cocky, and I never like to come across as cocky. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't be the most confident person either, but I always felt there was more to me now. And I say that with the greatest of respect, in that just from the journey I've been on, watching Saoirse go through what she did, I always felt there's more in me now. More of what? I think I can do more. I think I'd like to help people. I feel like I'd like to do something where I get satisfaction or, help somebody. And I think it's also a part of healing for me. From all the correspondence we would have in our DMs on Instagram, I know that there's an awful lot of people that are struggling out there with their grief. And people will tell me that I have a way of articulating how I feel. They can't put it into words, but when they listen to me, it's what they want to say. So I started thinking about how I wanted to just wrap everybody that's going through grief up and bring them into a room and a safe space. And I wanted to talk about what we've been through. I want everything I do to be about Saoirse, so I would talk about Saoirse. But I wanted people going through grief, or people who are not going through grief and are struggling to understand it, but may want to help somebody going through grief. I wanted these people to come to this space, and I wanted to have conversations with professionals that can help support, give tools to these people. So I came up with this idea of an evening with Roseanna and friends.
Lovely.
And I had my first event in January.
How'd it go?
It went really well. It was everything I wanted it to be. And
How was
more.
your confidence and your...
I was a little nervous in the run up to it, but before
normal.
I went out, something came over me. I do believe Saoirse is very much playing a big part in everything I do.
Yeah.
And I believe she was there and she carried me that night. And we had 3 amazing guest speakers. One of them, which I'm still amazed with, was Jerry Hussey.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't like to say interview. You know, I emceed the night, but I had conversations
yes, yeah, much
with
nicer.
these people.
Yeah.
And the first person I spoke to was a lovely lady, Suzanne McLean, who lost her daughter, Rosabelle, and she set up a charity in Galway since then. So we spoke. It was 2 grieving mums chatting to each other. And the next guest I had was the lovely Laura Burke, who's a fitness instructor. And it was lovely because we spoke about, for instance, me being on the journey I was on. How do I find time for fitness and the gym? And I'm eating convenience food, and it's because you have to be there for your child, or you're in a hospital setting. And we just give out little nuggets of help that way. And then Jerry, of course, we spoke about grief, and Ollie stepped in on that interview, which was lovely. He came in on that interview and was able to speak about grief from a father's perspective, which is very interesting too.
What a healthy setup in terms of conversation and choices of guests, and the fact that you are talking about all of these things. I think there was a time, I don't know if it's the world, but certainly in Ireland, we just don't mention it. You know, just don't mention it. This is so good.
I'm trying to break the taboo.
I think you're doing it. You're not trying, you're doing it.
Yeah.
And that's tremendous.
Grief is a very valid feeling.
Valid feeling.
It is. Like it's you know, I said to someone recently that was going through grief and they were out on sick leave, I said, why does grief not go down on a sick cert?
Yeah.
You know, why do you have to come up with another excuse?
Yeah.
Grief is an actual thing. And I think a lot of people don't get it unless they've gone through it. So people came that night, Ryan. We had lovely music. It wasn't morbid or anything. It was very uplifting. There was tears, but there was joy as well. And we did a little meet and greet afterwards. And it was lovely because people were able to give us feedback that they took so much from the night. It was exactly what they needed. And it's important too to remember that there was people there grieving different things, not just the loss of a person. It might be the breakdown of a relationship, home loss or job loss. And I knew before the event was even over, I'm going to do this again.
And that's the plan.
And that's the plan. I have my next one ready to go for May. And I'm hoping to have another couple maybe before the end of the year.
Well, someday you'll have to interview me because that's the deal.
Okay.
I'm sick of interviewing you. It's your turn.
Right.
We'll do a deal on that one. When I left RT, I got hundreds and hundreds, even maybe more, letters and cards from all over the country. And people just sent me things, the lovely notes. And I haven't really addressed them until quite recently, where I sent them I brought the boxes into my friends in the agency that I work with. And they all went through them all. Because I kind of had to put them away, kind of going, it was very emotional at the time. And they were going through them. Everyone found them all quite emotional to read them because people were so kind. Yeah. I'm sure you got plenty of letters in a very different context. I'm not trying to compare. But my favourite one that was rescued from the boxes was this one of the 4 bears with the words, "You're leaving" on it. Do you recognise that handwriting? It's Saoirse.
Gosh, I don't remember that card.
Yeah, and it says, "To Ryan, you're going to be really missed, but she writes, but we will keep up our friendship and our door will always be open to you. Thank you for everything, toy show related, and the unconditional love you have always shown me and my family. We would love you to pop in for some Black Forest gatto en route home from your holidays in the west of Ireland. Lots of love and hugs, Saoirse Ruane. Kiss, hug, love heart, like the one you have on your arm."
So it's just to see it right there. It's just,
you know, it's funny because at the back it says, the message inside this card reads, "You're going to be really missed." And that's what she is. Missed like crazy. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you.
It's fine.
I brought this to your attention because it says everything about her. This girl was going through the horrors. She found a card and she found the time and she wrote down these sentiments and,
She's always thinking of
she's thinking of somebody else.
Always.
You should be so proud.
Yeah, I am.
You and Ollie.
Yeah, we did a good job there. We
Oh
definitely did.
boy,
Yeah.
oh boy, gold medal.
Yeah. Proud, yeah.
Where is Saoirse? Is she in heaven? Is she here? Is she, where do you go?
Saoirse, in my head, is on this road, this pathway, and she's a white dress and she's smiling because that was Saoirse.
Yeah.
And she's always walking with these big, there's always these big reeds of, I don't know what it is, white grass or left and right of her. So it's like she's walking through this field and she turns every so often and gives this big smile.
Wow.
That's Saoirse in my head. I don't think of her. I don't know what heaven is like. I just know that we get lots of signs.
Do you?
Yeah, I get lots of signs. Not like in the way, like you'd be saying, oh, you'll get loads of signs today now because it's her birthday or it's Mother's Day. They don't come like that. For me, it's 2222. It's all the twos. I even have this bracelet because it's the 222 was written on the back, was the registration on the back of her hearse. And the day we went down to the church, I'll never forget Pharaoh saying to me, why does Saoirse get to go in the cool car? And I said, oh, that's the taxi to heaven. That's what came out of my mouth. I just said, that's
pretty
the
quick
taxi
on your
to
feet
heaven.
there.
Yeah. And she thought it was a cool car.
Wow.
And 222. And that was the first time, and then it was just certain things like I could, the way you'd pick up your phone and it might be 17:59 or it could be 13:21.
Yeah.
But there's so much that happens to me that I'd pick up the phone and it's 22:22.
22 minutes past 10 at night or what have you.
And the Saturday night we went for dinner for my parents' 50th wedding anniversary. I picked up the phone as we left the car park and it was the 22nd of March and it was 22:22. Like, how do you look at your phone at that exact time? I have to believe that she's saying, I'm with you, Mama.
Wow.
I really do.
You take comfort from that, don't you? I can see that looking at you.
That and feathers.
Feathers?
Yeah. The morning of her month's mind, Ollie was going for a run and he found 3 white feathers at the gate. 3 white feathers. There was no birds, no nest.
One each.
We didn't even have the hens and they were all different sizes. And we had to believe that it was one for Dada, one for me and one for Pharaoh's, and that Saoirse left them there for him to find on his way to his run.
Amazing.
Yeah.
They're like phone calls.
Yeah, just like little nudges to say, you're doing okay, Mama.
How are you? Yeah. Yeah. I understand.
I have a job to do. I have to get up every day for Pharaoh's because she deserves a good life.
I understand.
She doesn't deserve a mom that's going to be in bed and crying and always sad. I don't want her to look back and say, my mom was always sad.
Yeah, but you're allowed to be sad.
I try to be sad, announced to her. But if I do happen to cry, she's very quick to pick up on the tears before they ever fall out of my eyes. And she'll say, Dada, Mama's sad, give her a hug. She's very intuitive. And again, like Saoirse, very affectionate and very kind. And we can see that. We can see her transitioning that way and we're just so proud of that.
I just hope life is kind. You deserve more than you've had. And I know you had that beautiful daughter of yours, my old pal. But I just hope life is kind and I hope you keep seeing feathers and 22s and whatever you need to stay in touch with her. I'm happy at a personal level, if I may say, to see you again because I thought this was going to be a lot more difficult than it was.
Yeah.
We got there together here today in a really lovely way. I'm really happy we've reconnected because I found it hard thinking about you.
I know.
Because, and I'm only me. I can't imagine where you are.
I know.
So, you know how much love there is for your family out there. Yeah. And I suppose on behalf of everyone, please take some wind in your sails as you're heading back to Kiltulla.
Yeah. Hopefully I won't get lost now like I did in the way up.
But drive safely and go well and Godspeed to you and Ollie and Farah Rose. You're beautiful people and I hope life is kind to you. And thanks for being here, Roseanna.
Thank you.
And there you have it, another packed episode with some great book recommendations for you to enjoy, all brought to you by Eason, Ireland's favourite bookseller. So shop in your local Eason store or explore hundreds of thousands of titles online at easons.com. Order before 6 p.m. for same-day dispatch and enjoy free delivery when you spend over a tenner. Eason, be inspired.